So the Ford government is proposing a lot of changes to the way that rentals work in Ontario. I wanted to take you through the most recent article today because there's a lot of information there about maybe things that we might see in the future, especially as it pertains to tenants and landlords, and also get your thoughts on the whole situation as well. My name is Elon Portnoy. I run a real estate team here in the city. For the last 10 years, I've been helping a lot of people with rentals, purchase and sale. So it's going to be really interesting to dive into this. If you want to book a call with myself, the link is the first one in the description below. Let's get right into it. Say goodbye to rent control, indefinite leases if Ontario passes housing proposal, according to advocates. Province says consultations underway as it aims to protect tenants while supporting landlords. That's not what tenants are going to say, right? I mean, you're framing it in a way to say that you want to protect tenants, but we all know what's really going on here. There's not a lot of tenant protection to be had. Ontario's planned new housing legislation could open the door to ending rent control and indefinite leases across the province, advocates warn after a recent proposal by Premier Doug Ford's government. The Ford government introduced a new housing bill on Thursday that says it would streamline approvals and let developers build homes more quickly. So to summarize that article really quickly, Ontario had a goal of building 1.5 million new homes by 2030. Now it looks like they're going back on that proposal entirely. They say that they want to make the process easier and get rid of some red tape for developers and let them build more homes, but at the same time, new housing starts have dramatically fallen off a cliff, and anybody who works in and around construction knows that the trajectory is not for us to bounce back anytime quickly. If anything, it's going to be ugly for a while, and we're in for some dark days with respect to new housing starts. But that said, the Ford government is constantly coming out with quotes saying that they're doing what they can to make it a little bit better. However, absolutely not doubling down on the 1.5 million by 2030 timeline. They know that's crazy. We know that's crazy. So that's not going to happen. So let's keep going. But buried in the legislation is a proposal for alternative options to lease expiry rules that could allow landlords to control who occupies the units and for how long, including through adjustments to rental arrangements based on market conditions, personal needs, or business strategies, according to the province's briefing slides Thursday. So definitely not words that tenants want to hear, right? Landlords being able to adjust their strategy, right? So not housing that I have a right to live in, but somebody's rental property that they're free to make business decisions on. So while you're saying that this protects tenants, then in the same sentence, you're basically saying that it doesn't and actively contradicting yourself. Housing advocates say if passed, the proposal will hurt long-term rentals, you don't say, and vulnerable tenants like seniors and students across Ontario. Everybody's panicking. This is not the solution for affordable housing, said Stacey Semple, a volunteer organizer with Acorn, a nonprofit organization that advocates for various social justice issues, including affordable housing. By the way, I'll link it in the bio, but the Acorn article about this is scathing. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but obviously tenants coalesce and they're fierce and vicious, and the laws already protect tenants a lot here. So Ford knows what he's doing, trying to sway the situation a little bit more in the landlord's favor. I think he knows that he has to use an extreme anchor here, that, we're going to just completely reform everything just to get a little bit of progress for landlords. Again, this isn't me advocating for it. I just want to be transparent with you with what's going on so you have a better understanding as well. He's taking away rights from tenants, she said, referring to Ford. The landlords are getting free passes to evict long-term tenants, especially because they want to collect more rent because it's more economically viable. Guys, there's a lot of reasons why landlords would do this. We all know that. Whether you want to debate if they're good or evil is a different story, but why a landlord would want to approve laws like this, they can collect more money and they can run it more like a business without needing to worry about the tenant's right to have a roof over their head. In a landlord's world, cold as it is to say, they care less about the tenant having a nice, stable property to live in than they do about their own bottom line. If we're talking about the neo-capitalist world we live in, business is business. Security of tenure at risk, according to advocates. Currently, tenants are protected by what's called security of tenure, which gives them the right to remain in a rental unit as long as they follow the lease agreement and Residential Tenancies Act. So what that means is that barring the legal reasons why a landlord can kick you out, which is basically moving in themselves or selling to a family that's moving in themselves, anything other than that means that you can't kick a tenant out. It also allows them to continue on a month-to-month rental basis after a fixed-term lease ends. Landlords are unable to evict tenants without a legally valid reason. But if the proposal is brought about, Semple says Toronto and other large populations of renters will be hit especially hard. According to 2021 census data by Statistics Canada, 48% of Toronto's population are renters. 48% of the people who this is supposed to go over with are against you, not for you. So that's a big number. She says without affordable housing options, more people could be evicted from their rent control homes and may end up homeless. Ford is actually going to create more encampments. I'm not necessarily surprised. Ford is all about the profit and a bottom line. In an emailed statement, a spokesperson for the province said it's undergoing consultations on options to lease expiry rules, but that it will continue to protect tenants while supporting landlords, including mom and pops who rely on rental income to pay their mortgage. So let's be real about this. A lot of the investors and a lot of the renters whose homes they're in are these mom and pop people who it refers to. It's people who own one or two rental properties at most. And mega corporations, they love gobbling up large portions of real estate, as we all know, which is happening, and it's happening en masse. But there's a tremendous amount of investors, small-time investors, who own one or two units. So the Ford government knows this, right? If they're supposed to go against the 48% of tenants, then who's actually going to be on their side in all of this? Tenants will continue to have strong protections across the province, including from significant rent hikes, holding 2025 rent increase guideline, holding below the inflation rate at 2.5%, said the statement. I don't know who wrote this article, but clearly it's not just me. That's crazy. But the point that they're making is that I guess the Ford government is saying tenants have it good now, right? We're going to find a way to keep the increases at some sort of reasonable, manageable level. And in the meantime, while we're thinking about making these changes, you can enjoy the, smaller hikes that are allowed right now. Obviously less than 2.5% for the year of 2025 for rent-controlled property. So I think they're kind of beating around the bush. They're telling tenants what they want to hear. Like, yeah, it's gonna suck for you later, but for now everything is hunky-dory, so it's all good. So I don't think that renters are necessarily going to take it that way. It's just that they're going to try to kind of weasel out of the tough stuff and give this stuff a soft landing place whenever they can. Proposal attacks every single tenant, according to Renter. When he first came across the proposal, long-term rentant Lee Beeden went on social media to share what he called a shocking discovery. His post on X has over 100,000 views, with several other concerned renters chiming in, he said. This directly attacks every single one of the tenants in Ontario, and I think people who haven't paid a lot of attention to the ins and outs and the details of tenant rights in the past immediately understood that this was going to directly impact them. Beeden said it's unimaginable to consider that this proposal could force him out of the apartment and community that he's called home for nearly 20 years. Renters in long-term tenancies often pay far below market price, he said, considering many live in older rent-controlled buildings. Without rent control, tenants will be forced to pay a lot more or move out to less desirable neighborhoods farther from the city, said Beeden. A lot like what's happening to people who want to be in the market as the city gets more and more expensive. If you want to own property, you have to go further and further from the city to do it, and the same thing is now going to happen to tenants, especially when things like this keep happening. People who are on fixed incomes, such as seniors or people on disability benefits, many of whom have said security of tenure is the only thing keeping of them in their homes. It's the only way that they're able to know that they've got a place to sleep tomorrow night, and we know homelessness is out of control in Ontario. Renters get 1-year guarantee, SPA gets 99 years, according to Critic. At an unrelated news conference Friday, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow said landlords could gain enormous powers with the proposal. There are considerations, consultations, but there has to be fairness involved, she said. Adil Shamji, housing critic for the Ontario Liberal Party, called Ford's latest legislation a mean-spirited bill that ignores the injustices tenants face and could lead to bad faith evictions. Security of tenure allows tenants in good standing to remain in their home until they wish to move on, said Shamji in an emailed statement. Only in Doug Ford's Ontario can hardworking renters in good standing be able to count on just a one-year lease, while a foreign spa company at Ontario Place gets a guarantee for $99. I gotta say, he has a point here. Like, if you look at commercial leases, they get such long guarantees. They sign 5-10-year leases sometimes. Plus, the bigger you are, the more you can get. Look at the 99-year guarantee at Ontario Place. So there's no end. Residential tenants don't get these kind of benefits, right? It's clear to see. The most common lease is a one-year lease. Very rarely you have 2, 3 plus, but I could count on one hand the amount of times I've seen it over a 10-year career. Shadow Housing Minister said families across Ontario could face mass evictions if rent controls are removed. Housing has never been more expensive in Ontario. 800,000 people can't find work, and now Ford is making things even worse. Is the Premier's only goal making life as expensive as possible for Ontarians, McKenney said, adding the province is the last country when it comes to building homes. The answer is building more homes, not trampling the right of renters. Ford has a responsibility to keep Ontarians from falling through the cracks. We need rent control now. For Beaton, the proposed legislation shows tenants must advocate for themselves. In recent years, tenants have scored some big wins by organizing rent strikes and protests, exactly what we were talking about before, something renters need to consider if the Ford government moves forward with its proposal, he said. That's one of the few things that gives Ontario tenants hope right now, Beaton said. That is where we should all be focusing our efforts together as the tenant class and let the government know we're not going to let them do this. So, guys, that's about it. I mean, really controversial stuff, right? The Ford government is not going to let its foot off the gas with all of this because, again, they have to go very extreme if they want to start putting the ball a little bit back in the court of landlords. And at the same time, tenants are not going to roll over and just take it. Far from that, right? They've proven that time in and time out. So the war is not going anywhere. The long-standing battle between tenants and landlords in Ontario continues to rage on. But that's going to do it for us today. In the meantime, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to get a conversation going. If you got something from this video, drop a like and hit subscribe. We come out with new videos every single week. And until next time, take care and all the best.